Hello, and welcome everyone to another Circus Stream webinar and workshop. Again, super excited to be here hosting this alongside a very special guest of ours joining us for this webinar. Just want to be sure before I do continue on, if everyone can hear me and see me, toss it into the chat there. Hello, Z, Dayon, David, Keegan, hello, and yes to both. Chinedu, hello. Perfect. Awesome. Everyone can hear me and see me. Lovely. Would hate to continue on without everyone being able to follow along. So great to have you all here join us today. I love asking this question from everyone and on all of our workshops and webinars. Where are you currently tuning in from? I see Susan's from LA. I myself am based out of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, the Great White North. But I see people from India, Toronto, Kentucky, Seattle, Southern Oregon, Spain. Welcome, Spain, Vancouver. Oh, Fernando, Calgary. Yes, Fernando Moreira. Great to see you. We got New York, London, UK, South Carolina, New Zealand. Stephen from New Zealand, welcome. Maryland, Louisville. Awesome. So quite an international audience as always. Thank you everyone for joining us on these webinars and workshops. Without further ado, let's kick this off here slowly. I know people are still kind of joining in, tuning in, rolling in, as I guess you could say. But let's kick off with some little housekeeping items there. Now, as you can see to the right, there is a chat tab, so feel free to chat amongst yourselves. Toss in any comments that you'd like, LinkedIn profiles if you wanted to connect with each other and build your networks. That chat is really yours to use as you wish. Now, if you do have any questions, specific questions, please go to the questions tab. It is beside the little chat tab at the bottom there. Toss in any questions you have for myself, for Thomas coming from Microsoft, for our team backstage. Any questions are welcome, whether it's about, Circus Stream's plans, Microsoft's plans, essentially anything Thomas can shed light and touch up on it. Specific questions about MRTK and Figma, anything, please use that questions tab. It helps us really, keep an eye out on what's come in, not lose it within the chat, and get to them during the Q&A session at the very end there. Now, there is a polls tab as well, and I'll toss in polls throughout this workshop and webinar just to see, where everyone's coming from, experiences, what you're looking to do. So if you wanted to go to the polls tab at the moment, I'm just going to toss in a poll right now so you can get familiar with it. This poll is going to ask you, what devices do you own? And I know there's so many devices out there that I won't be able to, or, that we probably haven't added to this list. But feel free to go to that polls tab, click on any of the devices that you own, and feel free to get familiar with it. So it looks like we've got some polls coming in here. Oculus Quest's leading the way. We got Androids, iPhones. A lot of folks do have smartphones these days. The HoloLens 2, we've got a few people coming in with HoloLens 2. That's great to see. Quest still leading the way. We've got some Vives, Goes, Magic Leaps as well. A Valve Index, all right. The Lamborghini of VR headsets. I like it. But that's the polls tab there. So we'll toss in polls later on throughout this webinar. Again, see what you're looking to do and, where you're coming from. And I see Keegan tossed in a question there, getting familiar with the questions tab. Thomas may get to it right now, or we'll save it to the very end. So Keegan, stay tuned, and we'll get to it as soon as possible here. Now, let's continue on. Quick little introduction from myself. My name is Stefan Lacina. I lead partnerships here at Circus Stream. I've got over several years of experience in the tech industry, working with travel IT companies, learning management system providers, ERP and business integration platforms, and now in the beautiful world of real-time 3D technology, augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, XR, essentially, extended reality. Nirali, Anil, great to see you in the chat and audience there. Always great to see familiar faces who have joined us before. Now, it's a pleasure and an honor to have Thomas Lewis join us today as well. Thomas is the Spatial Computing Cloud Advocate Lead in Microsoft's Developer Relations team. He's been with Microsoft for over 20 years at a variety of roles in different geographies, and he advocates on behalf of developers, designers, creators, and builders of mixed reality experiences. So again, if you've got any burning questions for Thomas about anything, really, he's open to all questions. Toss them into the questions tab. Thomas and I would love to get through them during the Q&A session. And Thomas may even, touch up on them at the moment. I see he answered Keegan's as well. So it's, again, a pleasure and an honor to have such an experienced leader join us and share more knowledge on MRTK and Figma. Now, today we'll be covering, again, the MRTK Figma Toolkit, really just kind of a guide of the two there. But this is how it's kind of broken down so you can get some, expectations in how long this will take. I myself will do an intro to Circus stream for about 5 minutes or so. And excuse me. And then I'll dive into the industry and an augmented reality overview for those of you who might be new to AR. That's going to take about 10 minutes or so. And after these 15 minutes of introduction, I'm going to invite Thomas onto the stage to dive into MRTK and Figma. And after those about 30 minutes or so, might be a little longer, might be a little less, I'll join in, wrap things up, and then we'll open it up for that live Q&A session at the very end there. So again, please don't hesitate to toss in any questions you have in the questions tab, and we hope you enjoy this webinar and workshop. So a little bit about Circus Stream. Circus Stream was founded in 2015 when everyone was kind of looking to build experiences and develop and design things themselves. We noticed the gap in helping people learn how to do this themselves. So ever since 2015, we focused on education, helping enterprises, universities, and individuals like you all here today learn and build the skills to develop and design experiences yourselves. And we've helped reach over 45,000 learners globally. And Circus Stream maintains a high level of certification and standard. Our instructors are certified expert programmers, professional programmers, and Circus Stream is also a Unity authorized training and channel partner as well. Now, Circus Stream is also one of the only providers out there that provides micro-credentials and badges, and we actually had the pleasure to work alongside Unity to co-create the Certified Associate Programmer certification that they have available. Now, again, I mentioned Circus Stream helps enterprises, universities, and individuals learn these skills to develop experiences themselves. And in terms of enterprises, these are just some of the companies and businesses and institutions that we've had the pleasure to help learn and teach, from Walmart, BMW, the University of Maryland, Dell, Accenture, you name it. Typically we've had them in our programs and help them learn these skills themselves. And then for universities, Circus Stream also partners with some of the most forward-thinking universities out there to deliver XR development, design, and career-oriented boot camps to communities located in those areas who are interested in building the skills themselves. So if you're located in any of these areas and you're interested in diving into this at any point in the future, you're more than welcome to reach out to the schools there and join a course and program while getting a certificate from one of these universities and colleges out there. And how have we done this? Well, typically we've done this through 3 courses and programs. Our XR Development with Unity course. This one's more programming oriented, right? Technical, developer focused scripting, but beginner friendly nonetheless, 10 weeks long. And I'll dive into it later on. Then we have an XR design course, beginner friendly as well, 10 weeks long. However, it doesn't involve that coding and scripting side of things. So it's really for the designers out there who don't want to get their hands dirty with programming and really focus on user experience, storyboarding, prototyping, mocking things up, and user testing. And then the last one is our Unity Developer Bootcamp for folks who really want a more intensive program to be successful in a career afterwards. It is a career-oriented course, 24 weeks long, so several months long. And again, really tailored for those who want to kick off or re-hone in on the skills for a career in this industry. Now, in terms of learners and individuals, well, excuse me, we've had the pleasure to, again, teach people from all walks of life. And for the last 3 consecutive years, we've had learners get into Oculus's Launchpad program to get further support on the projects they've been working on, and even sometimes receive funding from Oculus. And then even helping folks land careers at Bungie, Electronic Arts, and Microsoft themselves as well. And it's always a pleasure and honor to see people from all walks of life learn these skills and create experiences that help solve real world issues and problems. But really, now that you've learned a little bit about us here today, what are you going to learn in this webinar and workshop? Well, we're going to do an overview of MRTK and Figma Toolkit, how it's being used in the XR design process, and why we should consider prototyping as important as coding in the process there. And, before I do invite Thomas onto the stage here, I want to touch up on the industry, right? Where is this all going? Why should we learn about this? Why are we kind of covering this here today? Well, there are so many industries embracing this technology. And I like to say that almost every and any industry can incorporate this technology in their workplace, whether it's for collaboration, meetings, product demos, product visualization. There's so many different areas that you can use this technology with in so many different industries. And here we can see media and entertainment has always been a huge one alongside military, but retail, architecture, healthcare, manufacturing, again, so many possibilities. And even with this technology being so young. And then in terms of geographic trends, again, we can see that globally, there is an increase and an interest in augmented reality and virtual reality. And it's just growing globally, especially in light of the pandemic that we've been seeing the last few years, finding different ways to engage with customers, interact with users, and even, train folks on certain ways that, may have not been possible before, especially in the pandemic where you couldn't travel, you couldn't go on site. Now everything's virtual. So again, very excited to show you, how MRTK and Figma could potentially help with these later on. Now, in terms of industry trends and growth, again, I love sharing these 2 facts and statistics. Price Waterhouse's Seeing is Believing report said that almost 24 million jobs worldwide will be using augmented and virtual reality by 2030. And this is for training, collaboration, and to provide new digital experiences. And then they also mentioned that VR and AR have the potential to add 1.5 trillion to the global economy by 2030. So again, it's going to be, and it may be, I can't say it's going to be, it may be applied to so many different jobs around the world, even jobs that might not be created yet today. And learning these skills are really an advantage, right? Hire.com said there was 1,400% AR VR job growth in 2020, 601% demand growth for real-time 3D engine skills, Unity, Unreal, and other ones. And then it said that those with Unity skills can expect a $20,000 increase in salary, which isn't too shabby, if I may say so myself. But then a very interesting one that I came across that I did want to add to this slide. A few weeks ago, one of my colleagues shared it in our channels at work here, was according to the World Economic Forum, the lack of digital skills among their people cost 14 of the 20 G20 countries 11.5 trillion. And it also reported that by 2030, United States talent shortages and skills gaps could cost its economy 8.5 trillion. So big numbers, and again, kind of really highlighting the interest and, I'd say the need for people with these skills as it's kind of growing and as more industries start incorporating and investing in this technology. Now, what is augmented reality? Well, briefly touching up on this for anyone who is new to augmented reality, also known as AR, allows for virtual items and information to be overlapped in the real world. And the user can use AR glasses or, headsets like the HoloLens, or even use digital screens like smartphones and tablets. And by using these items, the user can really kind of overlap information or things in the real world. And the user is not isolated from the real world around them, like in virtual reality, where you're fully immersed, right? Augmented reality, not fully immersed, but nonetheless, you can still interact with and see what is happening in front of you and around you in the real world with things overlaid on top. And I'd say the most well-known example of AR, could be Pokemon Go, the game that overlapped, digital creatures and Pokemon onto the real world, or Snapchat and Instagram filters, for instance, that put digital objects such as hats or glasses on your head or face, right? Now, I love sharing the evolution of AR to the evolution of the mobile phone, right? Back in the day, we had these big brick-like phones you can throw through walls, take down buildings and walls with. But as years went on, right, the devices got more accessible, more powerful, more convenient and affordable. Maybe not affordable so much these days, but into the smartphones that we have today. And where are we in terms of, augmented reality? I like to say, we're nearing that first generation iPhone moment. There's still so much room to grow. And really depending on how you're looking at, augmented reality, connecting it to, to the mind and all this other stuff, right? Again, so much room to grow, but we're almost at that point where, headsets and glasses will be readily accessible and available to everyone around the world, even though we do have smartphones and mobile phones here today. And just quickly, showing you and highlighting, how it looked like back in the day. This is one of the first, captured examples of augmented reality. This one was more so, stuck to the ceiling. You couldn't move with it, but still overlaid information on top of the real world there. And then again, it grew, started, getting more powerful, more accessible. And, military was one of the big ones that was using it back in the day. And really only, I would say affordable to the military. But again, it grew, it kept getting more accessible into the devices that we have today. And this is just a joke. This is an iPad stuck to someone's face. But really, we've got the HoloLenses out there, again, that a lot of enterprises and individuals are using, to even, potentially glasses coming out down the line, whether it's, Apple, Google, a lot of other companies that are working on something like this, even Mojo Vision with the Mojo lens, right? Contact lenses that they're building and working on. The future is friendly, and there's a lot of things to see and cover, later on. And then the last thing I kind of really want to touch up on is the augmented reality market size worldwide. So in 2017 and 2018, you can just see it was a fraction of what is forecasted for 2025 there. So about 200 billion US dollars, right, by 2025 there. So again, really exciting stuff, lots of room to grow, still the tip of the iceberg. And it's great to see everyone joining here today to learn more about it, get excited, and maybe start creating experiences themselves using these amazing tools that we'll be touching on here shortly. But with this, let's get the show on the road here. I'm going to invite Thomas onto the stage in a second here. But before I do, I'm going to share a quick little teaser video of Microsoft's MRTK3. So little teaser video, then Thomas will join on stage and take it away, and we'll get rolling from there. So here goes.
Mixed Reality Toolkit, or MRTK, is a Microsoft-driven open-source project that provides a set of building blocks for spatial interactions, rich UI, and other common challenges developers face when building MR applications. It's also cross-platform, supporting many devices from HoloLens to Meta Quest to Windows Mixed Reality headsets, and others. Now, you may be familiar with MRTK v2 that's currently out there, but today I'm here to talk to you about MRTK 3. And I want to give you a quick peek at some of our new features. In MRTK 3, we're introducing new interaction design features, such as indirect gaze pinch manipulation, which allows you to perform the same familiar hand interactions while targeting objects with your eyes. No aligning hand raise required. Here, we have our new data binding and theming feature. This allows you to reskin a UI quickly and easily, In MRTK3, we have a more modular architecture. We've broken down MRTK into over a dozen packages, so now you don't have to bring along all of MRTK to just get the features you're interested in. And we've been working on MRTK internally for over a year, and now we're really excited to open it up to the community and hear your guys' feedback and collaborate with you.
Ooh-wee, gives me the shivers. But with that, I do want to invite Thomas onto the stage here. Again, it's a pleasure and an honor to have Thomas Lewis join us here today. Thomas, thanks so much for joining. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about yourself?
Doing very well, thank you. Doing very well. Again, Thomas, it's great to have a leader and an expert like yourself join us. And I'm super excited to see and hear what you're going to cover today. And as always, love the work that you do, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to be here. It's great to chat with not only you, but all the folks that are joining us here. And I know we've got people from all kinds of different spectrums, from builders to creators to business folks, and people who are just kind of interested in this stuff because we're starting to hear a lot more about the metaverse. And I think it's going to be a really interesting future that we've got. So I think that we're kind of building and learning right now, but we're going to be moving forward from there, which is great.
Definitely agreed. Well, Thomas, I'll let you take it away here, but I will let the audience know. I'm going to toss in a poll here, as Thomas kicks it off. Just curious to know, for those of you who are joining us here today, how serious are you about pursuing an XR design career? So I just posted the poll there. Take your time to look into it, click on it. But with that, Thomas, I'm going to let you go here. I'll be backstage if you need anything. And for any of the audience members joining us, let me know if there's anything I could help you with. But Thomas, thank you again.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, thanks to everyone for showing up. I know it's the summer in a lot of places. A lot of people are busy. So just you spending the time with us here is great. And for those who may catch it on the recording, that's rad as well. So we're going to go through a lot of different things fairly quickly because there's just a lot of goodness around. And so I'm going to do sort of this guided tour. I'll give you plenty of links and things like that. So you're not going to have to, try to write all the notes down and everything. I'll give you links to places where you can find the information that I'm talking about. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Thomas Lewis. I'm a spatial computing advocate, as well as a developer advocate lead in our developer relations group at Microsoft. And so I am responsible not only for our spatial team, but our spatial work, but also our green computing and data and AI and ML. So I have 4 different teams that I work with, but a lot of my own personal work is around this. If you have followed me or seen me on Twitter or LinkedIn, I talk a lot about this concept of being a reality knot. What this is a person who is really interested in this space, but instead of coming at it from a know-it-all, as if, hey, all of this is all figured out, we kind of go from a learn-it-all perspective. And I really sort of appreciate that approach because it just means that we know that, hey, some of the things we're going to learn today may change tomorrow. The way we talk about the metaverse today, I have a very strong opinion that it probably will not look the way that we think about it today. But we'll talk about the metaverse hopefully another time if they will end up inviting me back. Here's my socials. Please feel free to follow me. I talk about XR jobs and everything in this space, as well as I'm a big fan of river otters, so you will see river otter pictures as well. But please feel free to follow me, and also please feel free to reach out to me. I love getting questions. We are coming up on a 3-day weekend, so it may take me a little longer to respond, but I always try my best to respond as much as I can within 24 hours. So with that, let's get into it. One of the reasons why there was the genesis of this particular presentation is because me and the team have been thinking a lot about creators lately and what they need. And what we found is that it's a very hard task to kind of step off on your first step on this journey to getting the experience that you have in your head into a vision and seeing it actually represented as a hologram. In fact, I joke a lot that our tutorials that I see are pretty much like this, right? Where it's like, install these 5-6 things. Once you have everything set up, well, then now you just create what you want. And it is not easy. That phase 2 chasm is relatively a large chasm for most folks. And the other thing is that a lot of times the way that people learn or creators create, we're building the plane after we take off, right? So we're kind of like trying to figure these things as we're building things. This is probably not a surprise to developers, where developers will say, hey, you can't just file new a project. You got to do some planning beforehand. And so as I began talking to designers, and by the way, I'm not a designer, but I like talking to designers. I like talking about design, and I like to think of myself as a design advocate, and especially around this particular space. But what we find is that a lot of those folks are kind of finding that, hey, a lot of the content and a lot of the way these things are taught, we kind of put the cart before the horse. And when we think about kind of best practices and kind of the challenges that we face, one of the things that comes up again and again that we need to be thoughtful of is mistakes in prototyping phase are usually much less expensive than those in production. And again, builders kind of know this, as there's the old saying of, hey, a mistake found in building something is much less than in production. And so a lot of these things we need to be doing beforehand, but we kind of run real quickly to sort of, hey, let's just jump in and just start building things without really kind of stepping back and saying, hey, let's think about our prototyping. And the thing is that, you know, for designers, we've kind of learned this back in the web days, right? You know, when I was doing a lot of web advocacy and we would talk to customers and we would build out projects, you know, we would give them wireframes, right? You know, and stakeholders wouldn't give us a lot of feedback, or they got confused and they saw these black and white wireframes and they thought that that was actually going to represent their brand and that was what their website was going to look like, which we know was not absolutely not the case. And so what happens is when we can provide a little more fidelity, a little more interaction, and especially in this 3D space, stakeholders are going to have way more feedback. And so a lot of things get figured out much earlier in our design process and our development cycles than if we kind of try to, again, build the airplane while it's flying. And so the conclusion we came up with is, number one, we want to start to build a lot more tools and content and things like that, and give product feedback and work with the community, thinking about how these creators and builders can have these tools that make it easier to prototype and construct their visions, right? Because I always talk about that I want to make it so much easier for these folks to go from, hey, I've got this thing in my head, to actually now being able to see this hologram or to see this immersive experience. Now, if you are kind of brand new to this stuff and you're like, hey, I read about this kind of stuff, I'm very interested in it, but I don't know all the things like eye gaze and head tracking and things like that, I'm going to recommend to you to go to this website, aka.ms, Designing Holograms. And what we did was we built a set of docs that can walk you through and show you in a kind of a 2D representation like you see here. But also, if you have something like a HoloLens, you can actually download it. It's a free app, and you can see it in a 3D space. And this is just, again, a really quick way to get up and running on a lot of these different things that we use and the vernacular that's used. Because I think some of the hard parts of this is when we say, oh, spatial awareness, as if everybody knows what spatial awareness is. We need sort of that common language, because when I talk about things like MRTK, we're not the only ones who have come up with a MRTK like tool or a toolkit. There's other folks as well. So like our friends at Qualcomm, their Snapdragon Spaces, they have a really interesting thing that they're building, and our friends from Magic Leap and other places. And so this is kind of a good start if you're like, hey, I got to learn kind of all these new terms. This is a good place to go for that. So today I'm going to talk about MRTK. MRTK is the Mixed Reality Toolkit, and this was built with in mind to make it easier for people to build UIs and to build interactions, because when the HoloLens device, for example, first came out, you had to do a lot of the heavy lifting, right? So if you were a builder, for example, it's kind of like, you can use a nice language, like C# or JavaScript or what have you, versus using assembly. And a lot of times you had to do a lot of the work as if you were using assembly language. And so we tried to build something that would make it very easy for people to build these things, so that instead of kind of dealing with the minutia, they could again focus on the experience and not having to have to do all the detail work. So when we think of MRTK at a higher level, there's kind of three things that we think about. So one is the MRTK is cross-platform. So this isn't a toolkit for just the HoloLens or our VR Windows mixed reality headsets. You can see here we support Oculus Quest. We support things like the Ultra Leap hand tracking. Magic Leap, they actually built on top of the MRTK, and it was a part of the MRTK too, because it's open source, so we can add those things. And you can see here for mobile, we have iOS and Android as well. So this is supposed to be open. It is open source. You can actually go up to GitHub and you can see the work that's being done. And if you wanted to contribute to this, you could as well. We also have this concept, it sounds kind of like a marketing term, to be quite honest, fast time to value, but it's something that we kind of keep in our heads, which is how do we make sure that folks from when they start to when they kind of get value out of something is minimized, right? We don't want the thing where you spend 6 hours trying to get things set up, and then that finally you get something that you kind of had in your head. And so we do things like, for example, in Unity, we have a simulator, right? So that you can go in here and you can simulate the hands, and you can see all the different focal points on the hands there as well. And if you wanted to, for example, to see this in a device, instead of having to build it and then load it on the device and things like that, you can actually make it really simple by using, for example, on the HoloLens, you can use remoting to just remote it directly to the device. Or if you're on an Oculus Quest, you can use an Oculus Link to make it very easy to see within the device itself. But again, you don't have to have the device. And we have some folks who do a whole lot of work before they even get the device, because sometimes, let's be honest, these devices are pretty expensive. And then we try to make sure that the MRTK is extensible. So you've heard me talk about sort of the open source part of it, but we want to make sure that it's something that people can build on top of, and that they can kind of take things that they need. So if you say, hey, we've already built our own X system, you can use that X system. You aren't forced to use the way that we built it and allowed you to use it. And here I just want to show you some examples. This is a very small amount of feature sets that are in the MRTK. In the top left, you can see we have the object manipulator, which allows you to easily take an object and move it around by grabbing it. And you can see that even from a distance, we can manipulate that in any kind of way we want. So rotating it, scaling it out, using one hand or two hands. And again, before the MRTK and other things like this, you would have had to build all of that yourself, and now you have access to it within the MRTK. Also, we do things like bounding controls, right? So that when you approach a 3D object, you can go in and kind of detail the boundaries of that. So I can kind of move it around, I can flip it over, again, scale out. We also have ability to deal with buttons. If any of you all have been in this industry for a while or built these things, you will know that buttons are hard. When I first got into this, I was like, oh, drag a button on, wire up some things. And I thought that's how easy it was supposed to be. Turns out in this kind of development, it's kind of hard to do. So what we've done is we've tried to make it easier for you to deal with buttons and toggle switches and things like that. Also, too, what if you want to build a hand menu, right, which is accessible via a motion and then have it kind of move with you as well. Well, that's why we have the hand menus that are available for folks. And then also we do something which is a concept called spatial awareness, right? Which allows you to understand the geometry around you of the real world. So we understand walls, we understand tables, because when you put something on a table, you don't want it to just fall through because of lack of gravity or that it doesn't acknowledge that the table exists. We also have these really cool things that you see here, which are the shaders that are available to you. So a lot of folks, what they do is they start off using our shaders to do some really interesting things, and then they end up building their own as needed. But again, you don't have to go and do that type of thing. So as we've been talking, we do have MRTK 2 out today. You can download and use it. We also have a beta version of MRTK 3. And MRTK 3 was to solve a few things that we heard back. Because one of the things I don't like to do is to act as if everything is perfect, right? Like, oh, we have this product and it's flawless. No product is flawless, but hopefully iteratively we are fixing things. And that's what we've done for MRTK is we said, okay, what is it that we have heard from people, right? So some folks have said, hey, I don't like that it's not modular enough, or I want some design flexibility, or I want the UI to be data driven, or hey, how do I make sure that my experiences are accessible? So I'm going to talk about some things that we've done, and you probably heard earlier from Grace, who's a PM on the MRTK team. So one of the things we did is we made it very easy for you to not only bring in the MRTK into your Unity project, because we primarily use Unity or Unreal to build these things. What you can do is you can select your project as you see here using the mixed reality feature tool, and then you just select the things that you want. So for MRTK3, you can click on the things that you need, and it only grabs those. You're not having to grab everything. Whereas before, when you brought in the MRTK package into Unity, you brought it all, right? It wasn't a cafeteria style. It was like, no, we're going to put everything on your plate, which could make it bloated and a little hard to kind of, make it much leaner. So we've changed that now where you only pick the things that you need, and we've helped you with the dependencies as well. So if you click on something that does have a dependency on something else, we will install those things for you, and it will work in your Unity project. Also, you heard me talk a lot about buttons and how much of a challenge that can be. So what we've done is we've done a lot of work to make sure that layout is dynamic. So we now use the canvas within Unity to do some really interesting things, as you can see here. So making it very easy, again, for making those UI changes that are necessary, or to make them dynamic as people are using the application. We also were very fortunate that we're able to work off the strengths of others. When we built the MRTK, we didn't have a lot of stuff in Unity that we could build on top of. Since then, Unity's been doing a lot of work, and we work very closely with those folks. And now they have things like their interaction toolkit and their input systems. And so we actually work together with them to figure out, like, okay, should we still use our own that we built on top of Unity, or should we use what they have, right? And so we look at things like performance and stuff like that. The other thing that I'm really appreciative of the hard work that we're doing is making sure that we are trying to be standards-based. So for example, we focus very much on OpenXR. And when folks ask me, because, hey, you may not start off with HoloLens, right? You may start off with one of our friends, great devices. But people will ask, like, hey, well, what if I want to build for, our friends at Magic Leap, but I want to, I want to make sure that I'm kind of building in mind that I want to add HoloLens. Then what I would do is say, hey, make sure that you're using OpenXR. Because that's going to be our cross-vendor standard way of working with these tools. And of course, if you're more on the line of the web, so if you're more of a web background, then I would suggest take a look at WebXR. We actually have a tool called Babylon.js, which I'm a huge fan of, and I'm glad to come back and talk about Babylon.js because it's a really cool 3D tool that works in the browser and in devices as well. So if you're more web-centric, Babylon.js, you should go check that out. We also updated our design language. Our design language before was very flat. It was kind of the old way that we thought of as far as like Windows 8 and that kind of UX experience. But now we're starting to change that. So if you have seen any of our stuff talking about Mesh or Teams to build immersive meetings, you're starting to see this design language. But again, you don't have to go with this design language. You can go ahead and build your own. But again, if you're looking to prototype or to kind of move fast, you can use what we have right out of the box. And here's just an example, right? On the left is what you see from MRTK2. In MRTK3, you can see that it's a very, very different. If you decide, hey, we've got a customer that's still using the older version, we will help you with that and support that as well. So you don't have to worry that hey, we're going to just kind of automatically convert everyone over. They can still use the design language that you're using or that they used in there that they're comfortable with. But hopefully they will want to come to the new design language. You also saw earlier, Grace, again, talked about how we think about interaction design and the ability for us to do a lot of different things. And we do. We think a lot about interaction design. And what we've done is we've also tried to make sure that it's something that is forward-looking. So here, for example, we can interact with this coffee cup in a variety of ways, right? We're kind of far away from it, and we can use one or two hands to manipulate it as we want to. If you look over on the right-hand side, you can see here, oh, I guess it's not going to play. You can play the piano, or you can actually write with your finger on that whiteboard drawing app. And the good part is, we've made it in such a way that if a new interaction comes, because people are going to build more devices, they're going to have different sensors on them and different ways of doing things. We can build on top of that, right? Or we can enable that. So again, you're not kind of stuck with, oh, we only have these two interaction, design paradigms. We actually can do, whatever it is that we want to do and whatever comes in the future, which I think is really cool. And then the other thing we heard back was, hey, we want dynamic data-driven UI, right? So what we want to be able to do is to style things very differently depending on what the user might want, or to align to brand, that we have. Or if you're white labeling a solution and you're building it for another customer, you might want to, give them something that allows you to easily kind of change the UI as needed. And so I want to give you just a little roadmap for our MRTK. We did release the first public preview on June 8th at our developer days. By the way, all of our developer days sessions were recorded. So if you go to YouTube and you look up Mixed Reality Developer Days, there's probably about 6 videos, I believe, on MRTK alone. So you can definitely join in and get deep in that. We're going to have our general availability sometime between fall and winter of 2022. And then between that, we do release updates every 2 to 4 weeks. And remember, this is preview. So what we do tell folks is, you probably shouldn't be doing this with production per se, but you should be able to kind of take, projects that you're working on and see like, hey, does it work with MRTK 3? And of course, if you run into any problems, concerns, issues, please let us know, because that's what we're here for, because we want to make sure that we get your input and feedback as well. And also too, let us know what you need, right? If you're like, wow, it would really be nice if you all built this into it. Like you have a solver that does this, and we would like the solver to be able to also do this. Let us know. That's what we're absolutely here for. And then I'm just going to go real quick because I know we're running into time. But we did release a preview of a starter application called Zappy's Playground, and you can see it here, for example, within Unity. You can also see that we actually have tutorial notes built in, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. The reason why we made this particular starter project is because, one, people said, hey, we would like a sample that shows how things work together. So typically a lot of tutorials will talk about one thing, right? So it'll talk about gaze. But it doesn't talk about like, well, how can gaze and surface magnetism, for example, work together? And people wanted to see like a real world project where they could download the code that's open source and see how it's used. And for example, how can it use things that are in the cloud as well, like Azure Spatial Anchors, if that's what you're interested in. So the great part is that this is a startup project. And like I said, we use the Unity in editor documentation so that you don't have to spend a lot of time kind of jumping back and forth between our docs and actually looking at the code and building it out and working on it. I'm just going to kind of skip through these things really quick. We do show you how to set up your environment. So using directional indicators and things like that. Also how to set up the scene itself. And then we use these windmills, for example. So the way it works is Zappy is this robot, and he is running out of battery. You can see him, he's kind of quite tired, and he's run out of battery. And so what we need to do is use these windmills to actually provide the energy to him. And so here, for example, you notice we have this window. This is not a real window. This is actually a closed off Microsoft conference room. So you're actually seeing an actual conference room from Microsoft. But what happened was we used surface magnetism to figure out what the biggest wall was, and then put this, virtual window on there to bring in wind that will make those turbines run. And so here, for example, you can see we opened it up, leaves are coming through, the turbines are spinning. We look down at Zappy, and Zappy is now starting to get a little more energy from those. Oh, poor Zappy, we didn't get him all the way. I wanted to show you this because this is not only Zappy. If you get the turbines in the right path, Zappy shows up, he's energized. This little pop-in picture that you see here, this is actually for Oculus Quest. So if you're like, hey, I don't have a HoloLens, but I do have an Oculus Quest, we've actually built this so that it works in the Oculus Quest as well. And you can see we use a lot of the same 3D elements. We use a lot of the same MRTK code, but we now have an immersive experience there. So again, even if you don't have a HoloLens, we'd love for you to play with Zappy's Playground and learn as much as you can from that. And so if you want to grab those, you can grab those from aka.ms/MRTK3. So this will show you the documentation for what MRTK3 has. If you want to, there's a link at the top. You can go to MRTK2 and you'll see all the different features that are in there. I probably showed you about, I'd say, 10% of what exists in MRTK. There's like way more in there. And then, of course, if you want to download Zappy's Playground and play around with it, you absolutely can. We even show how it's been built. And Zappy's Playground is actually a collaboration between us and Unity. So a lot of the work that's happening is also making sure that not only is it performant with Unity, but we're also driving product feedback to Unity as well. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. All right. So some of you are like, hey, yeah, MRTK sounds great, but I'm really more interested in Figma and how I can use Figma, because I'm more of a Figma/designer person than I am going to be using MRTK. Although MRTK and Figma are like peanut butter and chocolate, right? So what I did was I went instead of telling you like, okay, here's what the Figma marketing says, I went to my friends who use Figma and I said, tell me what you like about it. So these won't be sort of your typical marketing things. This will be more about why do people like Figma. As you can imagine, the first thing was it is free. They have a good free tier. They do have an enterprise tier, and actually Microsoft is a part of that, and we actually helped them to come up with the enterprise tier. So it is free. The downloadable design templates are wonderful, so you don't have to like start off with a blank canvas. You can actually have something that already exists, and they've got tons and tons of templates. So if you decide, hey, Thomas, not interested in mixed reality right now, but I would love to be able to template out a mix or like an iOS app or a web site. I want to be able to do that, and this allows you to easily do that. It's also easy to get started. You don't need to know a heck of a lot. And what I found from the folks that I talked to, they said that even there are folks who weren't designers but were very interested in helping out with design, that they found it very easy to get started with Figma. Also, it works across all platforms. So it doesn't matter if you're Windows, if you're Mac, it works across all the platforms. I personally just use the website. The website has done wonders for me. I think that the website does a great job. And so you don't have to, you don't have to install a native app unless you actually want to. The other thing is it's a good community. So not only are a lot of those templates from the community, but the community itself is very helpful. And if you go to YouTube, for example, there are tons and tons of tutorials. And I have found that, they always say don't read the don't read the comments on YouTube. This is probably where you may make an exception, because I have again found that most folks are really, really kind and friendly in this space. And so I hope it stays that way. And then finally, the thing I heard from a couple of folks was that their developers and designers are communicating better, because some of them came from kind of the old school way of, hey, the designer has Photoshop, they do all these mock-ups and comps and red lines and things like that, and then it's kind of thrown over, the wall, and then the developer gets it, and either they don't have enough fidelity, so like animations, they can't really tell what the animations do, or hey, it's this thing that you've created, it's going to take 20 days instead of the 10 days we have allotted for this feature set. And so it's actually one of those things where people have said we communicate much better now, right? It's much more interactive. We see it early and we can actually talk about it, right? So there's different ways that you can communicate within Figma itself. So again, if you've never tried Figma before, it is definitely worth your time checking out. And the thing is, we love Figma. I knew a lot of people were using it, and I thought, oh, well, it's just this kind of like greenfield, like small amount of people. No, it turns out Figma is way bigger at Microsoft than I thought. In fact, a press release, or not press release, an article came out media source that talked about Microsoft's use of Figma. And one of our execs said, it's kind of like air and water for us. And we use it across a lot of different dimensions. So it's not just designers, but our developers, data scientists, marketers, they're all using Figma as well. And the article said tens of thousands of Microsoft users, which just blew me away, but I totally understood why. And for us, it's very important because it also works across all platforms. So, again, Microsoft, a lot of people still think we're just like the Windows company, and we're not anymore. Like everyone's using, Macs, PCs, Linux, you name it, we use all the platforms. So this really helps us a lot to use a tool that works for everyone. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret, and I'm going to ask you, please don't share. And this isn't one of those where I do the faux, please don't share, and then you're supposed to go to social media and share with a lot of people. So I'm going to tell a secret just to the folks who are on here, which is if you're a Microsoft employee and you go to our intranet and you do a search for whatever, you typically have, the search come back for a term, and then you have things like you can say, oh, I only want to see PowerPoints, or I only want to see docs, or I want to only see the people associated with it. You have all those different kind of things that you can search on. We actually have a Figma drop down for it as well. So when I search for a particular product, it also shows me all the Figma files that are available to me. And so this is really interesting because, like I said before, I wasn't even aware of what is this Figma on our homepage search, and it turned out that we do that internally. So again, that just shows you how much Figma is making waves. And then also too, we just announced with Figma that we are integrating Teams with Figma. So your team can get together in a Teams chat, and we can work on a Figma file, as well as kind of working together using all the stuff that Teams has. So this is great to see sort of that integration. So again, if you didn't think that we were interested in Figma, hopefully you're seeing that we have changed quite a bit around that. So how does it actually work in theory? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my browser. Mr. Browser, let's see. All right, so hopefully you all can see that. So if you go to figma.com/community, this is where you can see all the different things that have been uploaded from the community for Figma. So you have all of these different resources that you can use pretty much for free, depending on what it is that you're building. So you can see here, there's a lot of good things, all kinds of UI kits to, hey, how does, an e-wallet digital payment system work? And that's very cool. And then what you can do is you can just go and search. So if you go up here to search, you type in MRTK. And you can see here we have the Figma Toolkit right there for you to grab. Someone right here, Simon, he customized the MRTK kit. And then also too, you can see here, for example, where we're already starting to work on the MRTK3, and you can get an early peek at that as well. And then when you actually click on it and install it, you get that file, and this is what Figma looks like, right? So you have, the different parts of your Figma file over here on the left. On the right, you can see we have inspectors and things like that. You can comment. We can export out different things within this. And so it starts off with a introduction. So we talk about not only how to get it started, but what's included. If you want to use our Sago UI font, it shows you where to go and download those from, how to build a UI layout or storyboard, how to use states, swapping out icons, and things that are pretty important, like pixels versus real world sizing, right? That you need to think about. That's very different than like building a website or building a mobile app. And then things like getting from Figma to Unity, which I'll show you here in a little bit. Of course, change logs, We also have a UI gallery. So again, you don't have to make your own buttons. You don't have to make your own, settings buttons. You can see that they're right here. But again, you can go in and change them. And by the way, yeah, you just in Figma, you can create a duplicate or a fork of this and then kind of work on your own. So if you were like, hey, we're all about, lilac. Well, guess what? You can change all of the colors and everything to lilac. Some viewports for you to look through. So we actually have a HoloLens 1 viewport and a HoloLens 2 viewport so that you can kind of look through those. Here's some examples, and you can actually see the storyboarding here. So I'm just bringing this up a little more so that you can see it. So a lot of folks use Figma, of course, for storyboarding. And again, you can see all of these, are things you can pull out and change as you like. And then, of course, we have those components available for you. So in fact, you don't have to, for example, build out the start menu. We will give that to you. If you want just simple accept, modal dialogues, we've got those here. Or if you're like, hey, I want to show, different hand gestures, you can see that we have different hand gestures here as well that you can make changes to. And we also try to provide tips like you see here. And so, you get more information through those. And I would say, yeah, if you're thinking about using Figma, use this for any of the projects that you have. And again, I don't make any money off of Figma by showing them off. I just think it's a really great tool for the prototyping that we've been talking about. And then we also have something that you can use with the Figma Toolkit, which is our Unity bridge. Because once you build these things in Figma, okay, that's fine and everything, but you don't want them to be sort of like, locked in and not able to be reused. So what we did was we built a tool that allows you to take what you built in Figma and get it into Unity, because your developer or your builder is probably going to spend most of their time there. And so here, for example, I'm just going to play a little bit of a video here that shows it being used. So here we are in Figma. We're building out a panel here with the different things so we can manage our CAD models, talk about rendering, and then we have kind of our staged area for the rover. Whoops, sorry. Let me get back there and pause so you can see it. So here, for example, you can see with the Unity plugin, all of our stuff comes over with the same fidelity over into Unity. And then as we continue to work on it, we can actually play. So you can see here, for example, we have it in play mode so that you can play around with it. You don't have to actually put it within a device. You can use it just within Unity itself and play around with it there. And then here, for example, is where you are starting to see it in a device setting. So here, for example, we recorded this with HoloLens 2's mixed reality capture. And so there's our rover, as we expected. The buttons work the way that we think it should. And we can actually take this model and we can resize it. And remember, that object manipulator we talked about earlier makes it easy to do these things, right? We didn't, again, have to build all of that. That stuff was built in just for us there. So again, a real easy way to get what you designed in Figma into Unity. And the way to do it's fairly simple. One is we have a tool called the Mixed Reality Feature Tool, which again allows you just to take a Unity project and say, hey, I want to add these things to it. And we will do that for you, and we will set up everything for you there. With Figma, you will have to get an access token. So there's a little bit of work there, but if you go to our documentation, we walk you through exactly what you need. Of course, be a little bit careful with how you use those tokens because someone can look at all your other files as well. If you ever have used Figma or you see kind of the community, there's a lot of talk about Figma security. So you may want to just look at that as you're thinking of these things. But then at the bottom, what we can do is we can see here that these two things are working together. So for example, if again you said, oh, this customer I'm working with, their brand color is lilac, then what you can do is you can change it within Figma, and it will get updated in Unity as well, and vice versa. So again, this is just a great way for you to make sure that, hey, you're getting a very easy way to, take what has been designed in Figma and now being used in Unity. And a lot of folks I know who are on the design side are really excited, because used to it was like, oh, well, Unity is for a different kind of person. Now what's happening is folks are like, no, I'm actually now in Unity and I'm seeing what it looks like in there and learning more about Unity as well. So the designer can take a much larger role if they're interested in that. And it also makes it easier on the developer, because the developer is not having to try to like figure out like red lines of like, okay, this needs to be this many pixels versus this. And especially in 3D, it becomes very hard to kind of manage pixels, because guess what? Pixels are going to be very different in 3D than they are going to be in 2D. So with that, I know we went through this very, very fast. And the reason why is because I really wanted to get you exposed to a lot of these different things. And the most importantly, what I want everyone to kind of take away from this is that we do need those tools to help us prototype and to take kind of our ideas and kind of come to fruition much faster. And you can see, for example, what we can do is we can design an experience in Figma, use MRTK and the Unity plugin to get very, very close to something that we can show someone within a device themselves. And again, this makes it much easier for stakeholders to see kind of the direction that you're going in. And so I always tell folks, like, take that step back, think about how prototyping should be a part of your process. And I think what you'll do is you'll find out that this is going to be much, much more helpful in the long run, as especially things are changing all the time in this space as well. Like I said, if you are interested in this kind of stuff, please, if you want to, follow me on Twitter, or you can send me an email or follow me on LinkedIn. I'm going to be presenting a lot more on these kind of topics around prototyping and less code experiences. And how builders and creators can work together on this stuff. I also talk about jobs at Microsoft as well, and jobs that are in the ecosystem, because one of the things a lot of folks are looking towards is, hey, how do I get a job in these fields? So I try to make sure that I'm posting those things as well. And like I said, I just want to absolutely open it up for you to reach out to me. Because I would love to talk to all of you some more and learn how you are becoming a reality knot as well. Well, with that, I know that we've got some things to talk to you about, and then we're going to open it up for questions. I'm going to jump over to the questions as well and take a look at those. And thank you again. I really, really appreciate the time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Thomas Lewis, thank you so much. Thank you, Thomas. Loved this guided tour and introduction. Amazing. I'm going to take 5 minutes to wrap things up here, but before I do, everyone who's still tuned in, I'm going to toss in a poll, and I'd love to ask you all, and let me just correct this little blurriness here. Perfect. On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being you would recommend this, how likely are you to recommend this workshop to others? Was this guided tour helpful? Do you want to see more of these types of webinars and workshops? Maybe bring in Thomas again sometime soon. Please let us know. Navigate to that polls tab, smash that 10 if you enjoyed it. But Thomas, the man, the myth, the legend, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it.
So with that, I'm going to take about, 5 minutes, if that, to wrap things up here quickly. Then we're going to have our Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please toss them in. You've got about 5 minutes or so to toss in questions, even afterwards as well. But Thomas and I will go through each of those questions to answer those for you. Again, if this is something that you're looking to do and potentially learn yourself, right, whether it's on your own or maybe join us here at Circus Stream, we'd love to have you with us. We have our XR development course for those techies out there who want to dive into the technical side of things, programming, scripting, coding, building and developing these experiences. Or if you're a designer or maybe even a developer looking to understand the design side of things, we have our interaction design and prototyping for XR course. This is user experience, storyboarding, mocking, prototyping, user testing. We cover Figma and MRTK here very heavily as well. So something to take a look at. And our Unity Developer Bootcamp. This is more intensive, 24 weeks long, really to help you get set up, ready, or reskilled for a career in this industry. Now, a little bit about the development course. Next course is on October 4th. Again, 10 weeks long with up to 8 hours of instruction per week. You'll have 2 1.5-hour live class sessions alongside one of our instructors and developers. It's all live and online, instructor-led, project-based. You'll come out with 7 projects to add to your portfolio. And even weekly private one-on-one sessions if you'd like, to really focus on your learning needs, interests, and potentially personal projects that you're building out. So again, check it out, October 4th, 10 weeks long, part-time, beginner-friendly, and we'd love to have a chat with you about it. Download a syllabus if you want to see what's included within it. Then we have that interaction design course. This is on September 28th, 10 weeks long as well, 2 1.5-hour live class sessions each week with daily open office hours. Again, this is design focused, more so, user experience. We cover Figma and MRTK here as well. So if you're interested in, learning more about the design side of things, diving into, spatial design, immersive design, this is the one to take a look at. September 28th, download a syllabus, check it out as well. No experience required for either of those ones, so beginners have no fear. We welcome everyone from all walks of life. Now, we do also have a great community here. We have leaders and guest speakers like Thomas joining us. We have a huge Discord channel with people networking, collaborating, meeting up as well, from various events as well. Coffee hours, show and tells, demo days, pitch days, you name it. We have it. But if there's anything else we may have missed, let us know. We love to build a strong community of like-minded people. Now, for those of you who might want to, really focus in on a career, we have a Unity Developer Bootcamp, 24 weeks long with up to 16 hours of live instruction each week. You can juggle, multiple things, but this is quite intensive. You've got 2 2.5-hour class sessions each week, instructor-led, dedicated career services, challenges each week, private one-on-ones, open office hours, and then every Saturday there's weekly labs where we'll have industry experts, game jams and hackathons going, things to prepare you to be successful in the future. And this is October 11th for anyone interested in it. Now, if you want to learn more about the bootcamp, we do have an open house information session on September 8th at 12 p.m. Pacific. So feel free to join us there, hear more about the courses program, stories from some of our alumni, other industry experts and leaders, sharing their insights on, why these skills are valuable for the future of work and for the marketplace out there. So September 8th, check it out. My colleague Z tossed in a link if you wanted to register for that webinar there. But with that, let's open it up for the Q&A session here. Again, thanks everyone for joining, and toss in questions if you have any questions. I'm going to remove this screen here, and there we are. All right. Now, Thomas, let's see. I believe you've been chipping away at some questions here. Thomas, are you okay? Perfect. You got Ju's question there.
Yeah, I've been trying to furiously try to answer some of the questions there. So one of the things that I would say, because I know a lot of folks are asking, like, hey, when will MRTK3 come out of beta? And we're doing the typical fall, winter, right? And and we always that's kind of a funny way that vendors kind of get a little wiggle room, because that'll be like, oh, there's this little tiny island in the middle of nowhere that does their winter differently than that, and then so you get another 3 months. So you can be like, no, technically we did ship that, but for the most part, we think kind of North America when it comes to those seasons. But we do look at the community. So we're wanting the community to tell us where, if they think that it is ready. And that's why I always ask, like, if you are building a project that's kind of greenfield, like on your own time, use the MRTK3. If you have a project that you built before and you're trying to convert it, we want to help with that as well. So definitely, let us know on those things, because that kind of tells us whether we should, go general availability or not. We also have some internal sort of, barometric marks that we want to reach as well. If you do go to the MRTK3 aka MS link that I gave folks, the other thing that's kind of interesting is that we talk about some of the features being a little like raw, right? So we try to give people the idea of like, hey, this is like brand new. So you may expect to kind of run into some things. And we try to, of course, test it as much as we can, but you're not going to think of every machination and every kind of way that someone's going to build these kind of things. So I tell folks to definitely do that. Also, Jew Park, I had Joe Park had a really great question of like, where do I go if I want to like talk to folks on the teams? We have something called Tech Community. It's a place where the product teams hang out. So they do blog posts. They have forums in there. That's the place I send everybody to, because I know for a fact that there are people that are working on answering those questions. Also, some of our community folks, like our MVPs, they're answering questions there as well. So you're getting kind of all these experts kind of in the same place, answering those questions. I mean, I think that's a good place. If you're the kind of person that loves a good Slack channel, go look for Holo developers. And that's a really great place. There's a whole bunch of folks that are on Holo developers as well. I'm on there, quite often, kind of seeing what the community is doing there. So yeah, if folks are interested in that, and by the way, if you're like, hey, I don't know, I can't get to this, or I wasn't able to find it by Google binging it, send me an email, send me a DM, and I'll send you a direct link to that.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Thomas. And if anyone has those questions around that, toss them into the questions tab or in the chat, whichever you prefer. But there are, a few questions we haven't gotten to here. But there's one from Keegan. I'm happy to answer this. And Thomas, feel free to shed some light on it as well. Keegan's asking, what universities have the best XR programs? Well, it's hard to say what's the best out there, but there's a lot of schools out there, universities that have XR programs. We partner with a lot of universities as well to deliver XR programs. So I don't want to be biased, right? I'd like to say our partners have very quality XR courses and programs that are instructor-led from developers and designers that are currently working with this technology, right? And not someone who learned it a while back. But Thomas, any insights on your end if you've come across any amazing programs from universities?
Yeah, I work a lot in the education space, so I'm going to be very careful to not say like these are the best, right? Because they're all, it's like they say you love all your children, but you might like you love some of your children just a little bit more. I find that a lot of them are doing some really great things. If you're in Canada, two that I worked with a lot was University of British Columbia and University of Victoria. They seem to have really good programs. I've had a couple of folks actually reach out to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about joining this program. Here's the syllabus. Here's how it looks. Can you tell me if like this is valuable or not? And I'm always willing to do it. Again, I may only have like 5 minutes to kind of review and tell you like yay or nay. But I'm always willing to do that for folks. If someone is thinking about, hey, I want to attend a university, because that's a pretty strong commitment for that type of thing. And so, but everyone's getting better. And I will tell you, the education space is one of the biggest spaces that is in XR. Like I literally, my team, because we have 5 people on the spatial team, and then I do spatial work as well. we could do nothing but education and we would be at capacity all the time. There's such a high demand for it, and there are people doing some really, really interesting things. And so it's one of my passions. As a manager of teams, we don't have a lot of time to spend on individual stuff, but I've always said if education and mixed reality kind of intersect, 9 times out of 10, I will say yes.
Aha, perfect. No, love the wisdom there, Thomas. You mentioned UBC, one of our partners as well. I think someone mentioned San Diego in the chat, another one of our partners. But there's so many places you can go out and learn this. So, again, feel free to reach out to Thomas or to ourselves here at Circus Stream, and be happy to shed more light on that there. But great question, Keegan. We got one here from Sean. Sean was asking, Unity's interaction toolkit is like MRTK 2, right? What are the main differences, Thomas, if you don't mind sharing that?
That's a good question. I will be the first to say I don't know all the ins and outs of the interaction toolkit. In fact, I just bought a book that I'm about to read on the interaction toolkit stuff for Unity. The other one that I have on my to-do list, so I'll have a busy 3-day weekend. The other one is Snapdragon Spaces. I've been wanting to spend some time because they have Snapdragon Spaces is kind of like a counterpart to MRTK, and does some other stuff as well. And so what I would do is I would say, let's get those folks in here as well to talk about what they have. It's not a zero-sum game. So I've told people, look to see what you're comfortable with, right? Because the good thing with Snapdragon is they're very just thoughtful of everything, right? Whereas for us, we're very much open, but we always are probably going to, in our heads, think of HoloLens and how it works and things like that. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the perfect answer for you, and I haven't seen anyone write that up. So perhaps it might be something that we work with the community to write something up and put it out there so that folks can, because I've always thought it would be really cool to have someone go through all the different toolkits and to say hey, here's what they have, here's what they don't have, how easy are they to use, how's the documentation and things like that. Because I always worry about our bias that if we wrote it, it would be wow, the Microsoft stuff, it has all the check marks, right? And the others have some of them. I'm like, no, we should work with the community and do that. So I'd love to do that.
Perfect. No, thanks for sharing, Thomas. And I think that'd be a cool thing to do as well. Let's look into it. Let's look into it. There's 2 questions here, one from Andrea and one from Anne that I'm happy to quickly answer there. This one, Andrea was asking, my colleague Z posted it, would the developer bootcamp also cover design, or should we do both if we're interested in both topics? So great question. The bootcamp does not cover design, as in depth or, as much as the design course does itself. So I would say if you're interested in both, feel free to do both. However, the design course really focused on design, whereas the developer bootcamp will be focused on those developer topics there. So great question, Andrea. Hopefully that helps. And then one's from Anne here. Anne was wondering how much design is covered in the development program, 10-week, not 24-week. None really. So they're really 2 different things, specializing in both really different areas of focus. So depending on what you're looking to learn, right? We've had developers take the design course to learn the design side. Similarly, designers take the development course to learn more about how developers put these things together, or, them just taking the courses to upskill in their areas that they've been working on. So hopefully that answers your question there. And feel free to reach out to our team, for any other questions. I'm actually going to toss in a poll here for anyone interested. If you're interested in our courses or the design course, would you like to speak to an admissions rep? So feel free to go to the polls tab, hit a yes or no. Yes, we may reach out and, just see, have a friendly chat, see what questions you have and how we can help. But great questions there. Let's go into some of the little more technical ones. This one's from CU. CU's asking, MRTK is a huge improvement from MRTK2. So kudos. In the environment of MRTK3 plus Unity, XRI, and Quest 2, is it possible to have a tethered link and test on Quest without building and deploying? If yes, Can you please share a link? Simulator is good, but it's not immersive. Thank you.
Exactly. In the simulators will never be the same for in device. So definitely. I, I don't have the link offhand, but you know what? Send me an email and I will find that link for you because, yeah, I know that it can be done, but we just probably have it squirreled away in our documentation somewhere.
Perfect. Awesome. Great question. See you. And we'll reshare the email here shortly. And then let's see, we've got one from Jason. Jason, I haven't seen you in a long time. Thanks for coming to join us. Jason's asking for building an app on the HoloLens 2 where the user can record first-person video as a part of the application. Would you recommend using UWP native on device app or WebXR Babylon JS? Any insights there, Thomas? I'm afraid I don't know much about this question here.
Yeah. From the two, there were a couple of projects I've seen, and they went with UWP native on the device because there were specific things that they needed to have access to that at the time Babylon JS couldn't get to. Because the WebXR spec was still kind of in flux there. So I would say probably err on the side of using UWP. WebXR will definitely get there because Babylon JS, that team is really, really amazing. They're doing a lot of good stuff. In fact, I'm backlogged on talking about a lot of the good Babylon JS stuff. So if you are interested in Babylon JS, please, follow me as well. And I'm not trying to push you to get likes and followers and things like that. It's just, that's where I share a lot of this stuff. And especially when I get these questions, I always go back to folks and we'll find out sometimes like, oh yeah, we don't have that in documentation. But yeah, I would err on the side of, UWP.
Perfect. Hopefully that helps, Jason. Great question, though, and thank you, Thomas, for the insights there. I saw Anil shared an article for the one who asked about Quest deployment MRTK3. Hopefully that helps there. Check out it. He added it into the chat tab, so check out that link. Hopefully, it gives you some info to help with that question we covered earlier.
Yeah, and by the way, like drop me a line if you do that because I've got a project that is Oculus based, and so I need to. I would love to find out if there are things I'm going to run into, and then I want to make sure we get those into our documentation as well.
Perfect. Yeah, great question, Jason, as well. This one's from Alberto. Alberto, if you're around, thanks for sticking around. I know you asked this half an hour or so ago, but Alberto was asking, hi, is it possible to make changes to Microsoft Mesh? Alberto, if we need some clarity, we'll let you know. But Thomas, any idea there?
I'm going to take the assumption that so Microsoft Mesh is kind of two things. There is the app itself, right? So you can download Microsoft Mesh today, and you can kind of play around with it and get a feel for what Mesh is going to be like. There's not much you can do. It's just an app, right? It's kind of a reference app for Microsoft Mesh. Our intention is to have something like an SDK where you actually build on top of all of this. You'll start to see kind of in Microsoft Teams that approach. So you're going to see this kind of immersive meeting experience, and it'll be kind of like the Mesh app, but just a little more refined. Then what you'll start to see is, people having the ability to build on top of this thing and build their own Mesh-like experiences. And I've said that kind of our Mesh story is very much kind of aligned with Metaverse. Metaverse is going to take a long time for us to get there, by the way. It's a North Star for the ecosystem. But yeah, you are going to be able to like kind of do your own thing. So you can say like, hey, I've got this, office, and now I want to do things. I want to bring in 3D objects and manipulate those, create behaviors. Or, hey, I want to go and take my university location and build a metaverse, build it in the metaverse, right? And so that you can kind of walk around, walk into classes, right? You can have classes in 3D. You can do experiments that you couldn't do in real life, and you can simulate those kinds of things. So yeah, Microsoft Mesh is something that we're working really, really hard on. Yeah, it's just going to get. I wish I could talk about some of the things I've seen. And I know there's a ton of things I haven't seen yet, so I'm kind of excited about it.
Great question there, Alberto. And I see a thank you in the chat there. So glad it helped out, Alberto. And thank you, Thomas, again for the words of wisdom there.
Yeah. And let me, I'm going to drop a link into the chat because I wanted just to give a little present to folks. We worked on a tool called Microsoft Maquette, and we have stopped work on it for a variety of reasons. But what it was an in-device tool to build out worlds in virtual reality, right? So you would actually, if you were like, I'm going to build a coffee shop, you could actually create the coffee shop within the device itself and do all of these cool things. We even had some cool, we had a Unity plugin as well that would take these scenes that you created in Maquette and move them into Unity. It's just one of those, I called it the hidden gem of Microsoft, and I loved it. I went and talked about Maquette to anyone who would listen because it was one of those things no one knew about, right? And I'd be like, there's these 5 developers that are just doing this amazing tool set, and we just never, ever talk about it. So the good news is if you go to that site, you'll go to the documentation, and you'll see where you can download the package. Also, too, that team kept the last version on what's the gaming platform that starts with an S where you can download games and VR experiences? I'm spacing right now.
Steam.
Steam. Thank you,
Yes,
Anil.
yeah.
Steam and Sean. Steam, it's still on there. So you can actually download it and play with it. And funny enough, a lot of times what I would do is I would start up Maquette because it has a lot of scenes already built out. And I would just go into those scenes. So like if I was getting a little too stressed out from work, instead of doing the right thing, which is go out for a walk and, get into nature, instead I would get into my device, get into nature there and just hang out. And there are just some amazingly cool things that were done there. So if you're like, hey, I got a little time and I'd be interested in learning how to build out these things. And by the way, there was a little scripting that was built into it that they never really talked about very much. So you could kind of script things as well. So yeah, check it out. It's one of those little things I love to tell people about because it's just one of those wonderful things. And I wish they could have, open sourced it and let us take over it, because I would absolutely have signed up to keep that thing going because it was really, really awesome.
Yeah, I saw a couple of people in the chat knew about it as well. But yeah, check out that link. I'll be sure to check it out myself as well. It sounds like there's some amazing stuff going around there. Perfect. Thomas, how are you on time? Just want to be, I know you're a busy man, lots of things you're doing.
Yeah, I have 2 more minutes.
Okay, perfect. So let's actually see. I'm going to pop up some questions that we could maybe quickly touch up on. One's from CU. CU was wondering, where can someone ask for help on MRTK3? He tried the developers, Holo developer Slack channel, but didn't get a response. Any idea for where he can?
Okay. Go to tech community. So if you Google Bing mixed reality tech community, there's a set of forums there that's good. If that blocks you, send me an email. I'll see if I can get someone to take a look at what the problem may be, or at least get you going in the right direction.
Perfect. Awesome. Great question there. And there's another one. This one's from Steven, and I figured it'd be a good one to maybe end it off on. And all the questions we couldn't get to here, we'll be sure to share it with Thomas. I'll share it with the team here so we can be sure to answer those for you. But the question is, we'd like to do more R&D with the HoloLens too, but it's beyond our budget to purchase it outright now. Are there people I could talk to about, maybe partnering, renting, borrowing HoloLens to potentially solve this issue?
Yeah, there's a few third parties that rent the devices out. So that's that is definitely an option, and it's way cheaper than the 30,000 plus price tag of getting one yourself. The other thing that you can do, it's a little bit harder. We do have a access to a loaner program. The loaner program has a lot of different requirements for it, but if it's something that's serious and will have a result out. So like if it's just, hey, we want to look at it and kick the tires, those usually don't make it through the nomination process. But if you're like, hey, we need this thing for 4 weeks, in that 4 weeks, we're going to end with this. We're either putting it in the store or we're putting it out as a sample that we're going to have our students use. Then those are a little easier to get through for those loans from us. But yeah, like you can reach out to me and say, hey, here's what we're thinking. Would this kind of work or not? I can kind of give you a, hey, not probably going to work. Or, hey, you know what? I'll take this and I'll ask them and see if we can make this happen.
Beauty. Thomas, thank you again so much for all of your wisdom, the answers to the questions, the guided tour earlier around MRTK and Figma. Again, it was a pleasure and an honor. An absolute honor to have you here join us today. Again, there's some questions we didn't get to. Apologies, we will note them down. Be sure to get back to them. But Thomas, again, really appreciate all your support here and can't thank you enough.
I appreciate it and look forward to meeting you all in social media or the metaverse or whatever is next. So yeah, like let's all keep working together, because this is a place where it's not going to be done just by Microsoft or just by big vendors. It's going to be the entire community coming together. There's some of you who are brand new to this, and you're going to be the North Stars for a lot of people. So I'm excited to help you however I can. So thanks a lot, and yeah, look forward to the next one.
Perfect. And thank you everyone for joining and tuning in. Hope to catch you on another webinar and workshop. Don't forget, September 8th, Unity Developer Bootcamp information session. But with that, good morning, good night, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're currently tuning in from around the world. And we hope to see you again. The chat will remain open when the webinar ends, so feel free to chat amongst yourselves still. And again, Thomas, thank you so much for everything today. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you again soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone. Bye.